So when I got elected, they ask you, what committee do you want to be on? And I said all the obvious things. I'm in a prison town and in a military town. And so I said all the obvious things. I said I want to be on the corrections committee. I want to be on the military and veterans committee. But the current speaker, not the present speaker, but the speaker at the time, put me on the elections committee. And I'm like, why am I on the elections committee? I'm interested in it. I just went through one, and I've certainly got a lot of things to say about it. But I didn't really know why they had put me on the elections committee. But I thought, well, if I'm going to be on the elections committee, I probably should know something about elections besides, how to file to run and how to run. So I went to the Secretary of State's office, and I spent the whole day with the elections team there. They got a great team there in the Secretary of State's office, and they just filled my brain, soup to nuts, everything about how elections work. But the whole time I'm in there, in that room, my phone is blowing up. I mean, I'm just getting message after message after message and call after call after call. And I'm not going to be rude. How many times am I going to get the opportunity to spend the whole day with the Secretary of State's election team? So I didn't answer the phone while I was in there. But as soon as I came out, I looked at my phone. The day that I was in the Secretary of State's office learning everything that there was to learn about elections was January 6, 2021. And while I had been inside learning everything that was to learn about elections, January 6th was happening at the Capitol. And it really just hit me right then. I believe the Lord orders everybody's steps, and I really, really believe that the Lord had put me on that committee. So did Speaker Reichman. But I really believe the Lord had put me on that committee because there was something to be done. He had put me in that place for that time. Whatever you think about January 6th, the people that were there that day, and I know some of the people who were there on the Capitol, and I've had the chance to, they're on the mall, and I've had a chance to meet some of the people who went into the Capitol that day. Those people were pissed off. They were pissed off because they believed that the election had been stolen. And the impression that it made on me, it just was like a punctuation mark, like an exclamation point, just how vital it is that people believe that the results of our elections reflect their will. And January 6th was a sneak preview of what every town and every city in our country is going to look like if we lose confidence, if we lose voter confidence in our process. It's not that far-fetched. I spent 25 years in the Army, like I said. I spent time in Iraq. I spent time in Afghanistan. You want to know why those places were so screwed up? They were so screwed up because people had lost faith that they could settle their differences civilly at a ballot box, and they had picked up guns and they were killing people to settle their political differences. I swore an oath, folks. I swore an oath to this country, and I will die before I let that happen in our country. I will die. So it was imprinted on me that day. We have got to restore confidence in our elections. And so as a member of the elections committee, I went to work, right? And we got some great legislation done. I was able to carry and pass a bill that ensures that election machines are not on the internet. I was able to pass a bill that gave election officers some more tools to clean up our voter rolls. And I was also working on all the stuff that I was working on for Leavenworth to bring jobs and opportunity back here. And, we run every 2 years, so it was time for another campaign. And again, with y'all's support, I was able to go back there and continue to serve you. And when you go back for that second term, now you got a little bit of time under your belt, and people are asking you, what do you want to do in leadership in the House? I didn't think for a second. I already knew what I wanted to do. I told the Speaker, I want to be the chair of the Elections Committee. because this is so vitally important that we restore confidence in our elections. We're on a clock. That year, Fort Hays State University did a poll, and they found that nearly half of Kansans didn't believe that the results of our elections reflect the will of the voters. I mean, that just think about that for a second. You know, you get much over 50% and folks start picking up guns, you know? And so we were on a clock. So I went right to work. We got even more stuff done. As the chair of the elections committee, what I've tried to do is two things. The first thing I've tried to do is I've tried to turn it into a platform for us to have a conversation about elections, because we're not having a conversation about elections anymore. We're having a shouting match about elections where one side's calling the other side tinfoil hat wearing loonies, and the other side's, you know, saying that side's trying to, let everybody vote and, let non-citizens vote and trying to steal our elections. So in my committee, I tried to make it a platform where everybody had to have a civil conversation. You would go up there to the podium. You know, sometimes I'd hear bills that I had no intention of working just so I could tee up a conversation. And, you know, the person come up and they'd give their view on whatever the issue was, and then they'd get asked questions by our side and by the other side. And then they'd sit down, and then the other side would get up and they'd give their point of view, and they'd get challenged by us and by the other side. And you know, I never thought that a committee hearing would be a viral video, but we had one or two of those where we're having such a great conversation that people are sharing it with friends. And you know, it's about us hearing each other out, but it's also about educating the public, because a lot of the concerns that folks have just come from a place where they don't know all of the intricacies of the elections process. And so we're going to have a conversation. But the other thing that I've tried to do with the committee is I've tried to focus on measures that are going to restore voter confidence, that are going to bring people back into the process. Because, you know, I know a lot of you have knocked doors with me, or knocked doors in the same places I've knocked. How many of you have knocked on a door and somebody came to the door and they said, "I'm not voting, it's all rigged"? That is unsustainable. If we're going to have a country of representative government, we've got to bring those people back into the process. And when I talk to them about why they think it's rigged, a lot of the concerns that they have, I don't agree with every one of them, but a lot of them start with vulnerabilities in our election system. It's not, you know, elections are run by humans. Okay? And so, yes, our elections are secure, but they're not impregnable. Okay? There are vulnerabilities in our system, things that we can address that will make it, you know, harder to cheat without making it harder to vote, that we can fix. And so I've tried to focus on those things, and I think we've got a lot of stuff done. This year, you know, after 5 years working on elections and 3 years as the elections chair, I had the chance to sit down with Secretary of State Scott Schwab, and he told me that he was going to run for governor, which I'm not breaking news here, he's announced. And I was, you know, I really like being the elections chair. I really like being, you know, in the legislative fight and being able to, you know, pass legislation, work with all the interested parties, work with the election officers to do something that works for them, that doesn't make their life harder, but fixes vulnerabilities. But then I started hearing some of the names of people who thought they might run for that job. And I want you to imagine for a moment if you had spent 5 years building your dream house, and then somebody walked up with a gas can and a lighter and set fire to your dream house. And that's the picture that was in my head with some of the names of some of the folks that were talking about running. And so I started going around the state, talking to election officers, talking to a lot of folks in the Republican Party and folks that I trust, that I take counsel from. I talked to my wife, who reluctantly understood where I was coming from, and I spent a lot of time in prayer. And honestly, I really feel that it's been laid in front of me for this moment, and so tonight I'm announcing that I'm going to be a candidate to serve you as Secretary of State for the state of Kansas. Thank you. Please. Thank you very much. Job one, the most important thing that our next Secretary of State has to do, which I'm going to focus on if I have to honor your vote, is restoring confidence in our elections. We really are on a clock, folks. I mean, you get out there and you talk, I'm the chair of the elections committee, I hear it all. And so we really are on a clock, and it is a race against time to bring people back into the process. I want to start by doing the same thing that I did as the elections chair. It's bringing transparency to the process. And sometimes that's just having the conversation. People who have concerns about elections need to be engaged. We need to hear them, and we need to hear their concerns. And where their concerns come from a place where our elections are opaque, where people can't see the process, let's throw open the doors. When I'm not in the legislature, I'm a professor in the Homeland Security program. I did a lot of Homeland Security work as an Army officer. I understand the balance between security and transparency. I do. But this is the most important public process that the government runs on behalf of the people, so we have to err on the side of transparency. Where we can shine light, we got to shine light. But when people raise concerns, and those concerns are about vulnerabilities in our system, we've got to take that seriously, and we've got to address them. We just in the last few days were able to repeal the 3-day grace period and make election day election day. That isn't like Pat Proctor. That is a lot of work from the Republican caucus and a lot of work from a lot of you getting out there and getting Republicans elected so that we finally, after 3 years, had the votes in the House to override that veto. So thank you. But that's important because of transparency. Elections that go on for weeks after the election day is over, and vote counts that change for days and days after the election are like the opposite of restoring voter confidence. They sow suspicion, and they make people be suspicious about the process. So I'm thrilled we were able to do that. I hear a lot of concerns about the voting machines, and are the voting machines being rigged? Or, we have a great system here in Kansas for paper audits, but it wasn't great when I came in. A lot of election officers weren't even actually using the paper ballot, because every vote produces a paper ballot, but a lot of the election officers weren't using the paper ballot. They were using the machine scan of the paper ballot, right? Well, I'm an artilleryman at heart, 25 years in the Army. Artillery is a system of checks and double checks, right, Tony? Sure. Yeah, and so it's not an independent check if you're using the same thing produced by the machine to check the machine. So we were able to get into regulation that they have to actually use the paper ballots. If I have the honor to vote, I'm going to get that in statute, and I'm going to increase the number of races and the number of precincts that we're auditing so we can assure Kansans that their vote is being counted and no invalid votes are being counted, and the results of the election reflect their will. As the elections chair, I get all of the concerns, right? Everybody emails me when I'm out and I'm talking to people. I hear all the concerns. And the number one concern that I hear over and over and over again is about non-citizen voting. Anybody who tells you that non-citizens are not voting in the state of Kansas is lying to your face, because the truth is, we don't know if they're voting in Kansas or not, because we're not really doing anything to regularly check. So this year, I sponsored, we were able to pass a constitutional amendment to make it clear that only citizens can vote in the state of Kansas. It's going to be on your ballot in November 26th, and you'll get the chance to say you don't want non-citizens voting in this state. we were also able to pass, and we're waiting for the governor to veto it so we can override her veto, a bill that regularizes something that was just happening periodically in our elections. 6 times over the last 15 years, the Secretary of State's office has been able to cajole the DMV into providing non-citizen data to the Secretary of State's office. Because a lot of people don't know this, but if you have you don't have to be a citizen to get a real ID, a driver's license or a state ID. You just have to prove that who you are and that you're in the country legally. And so they have the data. The DMV, when all these non-citizens go to get the driver's license, the DMV takes that data. We're going, the law that we passed is going to require them quarterly to provide that to the Secretary of State's office. Secretary of State will scrub it, and we'll, if we find people on the voter rolls, we'll remove them. I heard a lot of numbers thrown around by the other side when we were trying to pass that legislation, but the truth is that we just checked in November of this last year, and the Secretary of State's office found as many as 80 non-citizens on the voter roll, and they have evidence that as many as 20 of them voted in our election this last time. We need to check. We need to check regularly. We need to get them off the voter rolls so we can tell Kansans with confidence, precisely, no, non-citizens are not allowed to vote in the state of Kansas. Another thing that we really need to address if we're going to restore confidence in our election system is ballot harvesting. Here in Kansas, we have what I call the axis of ballot harvesting. We've got a group called Loud Light. We've got the ACLU. We've got the League of Women Voters. They fight against, well, first of all, they hide behind their nonprofit status, and they hide behind their supposed nonpartisan status to rake in money from George Soros and foreign donors, foreign billionaires, and then they use that money to block everything that we try to do to restore confidence in our elections. Every bill, Loud Light's there. Loud Light has sued many of our bills, including our bill to stop this industrial manufacture of votes by using AI to target voters and then flood them with ballot requests. We had a bill that would have made it illegal to do that from out of state, and Loud Light, ACLU, League of Women Voters sued and stopped us from enforcing that law. These groups are involved in putting their thumb on the scale of the election in the critical precincts to tilt the election in one direction, and hiding behind their supposed nonprofit, nonpartisan status while they do it. So we've got a law that I was proud to be a small part of passing, which makes it a crime to turn in more than 10 ballots that aren't your own. Because at the end of the day, that's where the metal or the rubber meets the road on ballot harvesting is, sending a bunch of kids out into a neighborhood and coming back with milk crates full of ballots and turning them in. So they of course fought that, lost it in court, but right now we still don't have a way to enforce that. Because there's an argument, is it Secretary of State's office, is it election officers, is it Attorney General's office? Well, if you elect me as your Secretary of State, it's the Secretary of State's job. And we are going to develop regulations and go to the legislature and get laws passed to put it in statute that we have to enforce that. We have to count how many ballots are being turned in so that we can stop ballot harvesting, because it is a huge concern for those folks that have lost faith in the process. And if we're going to bring them back, we've got to do something to combat it. So another huge thing that we've got to do is we've got to clean up our voter rolls. If you've been knocking doors in Leavenworth, Terry Lois taught me everything I know about knocking doors. If you've knocked doors in Leavenworth, you show up at a door, and at every door, you're holding the voter registration list, and it's the people that live there now, it's the people who lived there before them, and the people who lived there before them, and they're all still registered at that address. Sometimes they're dead, sometimes they've moved. As the chair of the elections committee and as a member of the elections committee before that, we have passed a lot of tools to help with that. 2 years ago, we passed a law that gives the election officers some tools so they can check, see if somebody still lives at that address, and if they don't live at that address, it starts a clock so they can take them off the voter rolls. We've also, this year, passed a law that will allow election officers to check the county's obituaries, the obituaries for the funeral homes in their districts. And if somebody's on there because nobody puts an obituary in the newspaper anymore, because nobody gets a newspaper anymore, they can take them off the voter rolls. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? I was watching, I think it was yesterday, somebody was interviewing one of the folks on the Doge team, and they were going through the Social Security list. They found 1,000 non-citizens who were both receiving Social Security and had voted somewhere in the United States. Somebody needs to pick up the phone and call those dudes and find out how many of them are in Kansas and get them off the voter rolls. And we've got a great opportunity with Donald Trump in the White House. We've got a great opportunity to work with the administration to put some mechanisms in place so we can identify these folks and get them off. Credit agencies and loan agencies know a lot better than the government who's dead and who's alive. Why aren't we talking to them? I'm not talking about like getting all the information for your credit rating. I'm just talking about asking Visa or MasterCard, is this person alive or is this person dead? That seems like common sense to me, and it's something that if you have the honor of your vote to serve you as Secretary of State, I'm going to do. It's not the sexy part of being the Secretary of State, and it's not the sexy part of the office, but people forget that there's also a business services division to the Secretary of State. And I'm a business owner. Me and my wife own this restaurant, a restaurant in Manhattan. But we didn't start with all these restaurants. We started with a little tiny 19-seat restaurant outside the front gate. And we had to navigate that process. We had to go to the Secretary of State's website. We had to apply for to be a corporation in Kansas. And then we had to navigate all of the different websites all over the state to get our food service license, to get our get our tax IDs, to do all the labor paperwork that we had to do to hire people. That is just a roadblock in the front of economic development in our state. The Secretary of State's website needs to be a one-stop shop where when somebody comes to Kansas and they want to start a business, they go to that website and everything that they want to do, everything that they have to do in order to start their particular kind of business is right there, or it's a click away from right there. And so, I want the Secretary of State's office to be a growth engine for growing the economy in our state. But it also needs to be cheaper to start a business. I don't know why we're now registering businesses half as long or half as many times, but we're charging them the same as we did when we registered them every year. That's just one example. There are a lot of places where we can reduce fees, and if I have the honor of your vote, I'll be working with all the other agencies so we can reduce fees across the board. And God willing, we'll have a Republican governor who will work with us to make it cheaper to start a business here in Kansas. It's been an honor to serve you as your state representative, and that doesn't end because I stood up here today and I gave a speech and said I'm running for something else. I still have a responsibility to everybody here in Leavenworth, Fort Leavenworth, and Kickapoo to do a lot of stuff that we still got to get done. I mean, we made a ton of progress. Historic Kansas Act to make it cheaper to, get these historic buildings back into service. We just did another historic tax credit bill that increases the tax credit to 40%. So maybe we can get even more developers in here, getting it done and getting these buildings back into service. But we've still got more to do. Our property taxes are out of control still. We've made one cut, but there's more room to cut. And I still am not, I don't care if I got to change myself to the desk until we get it done. We have got to do something to keep disabled veterans and seniors in our state by getting disabled veteran and senior property tax relief. So we're in the red zone. I won't say we're on the goal line yet, but we're in the red zone here, and I'm hoping we got to go back on the 10th. I'm hoping we can get this done. Remember last time that bill, the 2096 with senior and disabled veteran COVID tax relief was the last vote of the last night before we went home for the year. So it isn't over till it's over, and I'm not going to give up until we get this done for Leavenworth. This is a huge undertaking. I'm not sure if you should congratulate me or give me condolences for the decision that we've made, but I'm going to need a lot of help. This is a statewide campaign. We're going to need help reaching all of those different county Republican parties across the state. So when we get into the campaign season next year, we have folks that can help us knock on the doors. We can help us put out the signs. And so we're just in the beginning of this process, still putting together a campaign team. So if you want to be a part of that team, if you want to help me get to the Secretary of State's office and restore confidence in our elections, I need your help. So please don't leave without talking to me. It really has been the honor of my life to serve you as state representative. I tell people all the time, when you're in the Army, you're serving the nation. So theoretically, everybody you see when you're home, you're serving. But when you're in this job, I know everybody I'm serving. I've knocked on their door. They've told me what's important to them. So when I'm sitting in that chair, I feel the weight of all the people I'm representing. And when I'm about to push that green button or that red button, I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about how it's going to affect you and how it's going to affect your life. When I'm out, all over the Capitol and all over Topeka lobbying my fellow legislators to get this done or that done, I'm your lobbyist. I am out there lobbying for you to get the things done that you sent me there to do. And I take that responsibility very seriously. Somebody else is going to fill this chair, and I don't know who that is yet. That's up to the voters, the Republican voters of Leavenworth, and ultimately to the voters of Leavenworth, Fort Leavenworth, and Kickapoo. But when that person has decided they're going to run, I hope that you'll join me in fighting just as hard as you fought for me for that person to help them get elected to continue the work I've started. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you for all of the support that you've given me in our over the years, serving you as your state representative. I look forward to serving you as your Secretary of State. Thank you.